Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is ZAKWAN HARIZ, and for today, my group and I are going to make a presentation about our chosen company and the competitor for our company. For our chosen company, we have chose Petronas Dagangan Berhad as our company, and for the competitor, it was Aeon Company Berhad. For the business nature, Petronas Dagangan Berhad is a Malaysian oil and gas retail and service company. Petronas have been involved in the distribution and sale of finished petroleum product and service station operation for the domestic market. Meanwhile, for the Aeon company, Aeon has established itself as a leading chain of general merchandise stores and supermarkets.
Assalamualaikum. My name is NURKAMILIA binti NORDIN and my matrix number is A20B1833. For horizontal analysis, we have 4 ratio. First is liquidity ratio. Liquidity ratio have current ratio, quick ratio and net working capital. For current ratio, a higher ratio means a greater firm liquidity. According to the ratio that have been calculated, Petronas has a greater firm liquidity compared to Aeon. Next is quick ratio. Based on the table, the range of quick ratio for Petronas in 2018 was dropped from 1.39 to 1.31 in 2019. However, it increased in 2020. Aeon company get the lowest amount of quick ratio rather than Petronas. According to the ratio that have been calculated, Petronas has the high quick ratio, which is indicate that the firm management is more effective. Net working capital is a measure of liquidity. Tables show for Petronas and Aeon are decreased from 2018 to 2020, and the average score for Petronas is RM 1,772,536 and 67 cents, and Aeon has the negative amount of net working capital. This is due to the unstable economic condition due to COVID-19.
Hi, my name is IZANSAZALIN binti OTHMAN with my number matrix A2070M45. I will give an explanation about activity ratio, which is inventory turnover. Petronas performed better than Aeon as shown in the graph. This is due to the fact that Petronas has the larger average in inventory turnover than Aeon at 35.59 times and 40.33 times respectively. Petronas has increased by 39.98 times from 2019 and 2020, especially in 2020. In Aeon, in 2019, Aeon's inventory turnover fell from 4.91 to 4.66 times, but it set increase in 2020. In terms of total asset turnover, Petronas Dagangan Berhad outperformed Aeon with an average total asset turnover ratio of 3.02 and 0.85 respectively. From 2018 to 2020, both of these enterprise performance declines, but Petronas total asset turnover in 2018 is the largest of the 3 years. Now we will look at fixed asset turnover. Based on the graph, Petronas performed better than Aeon because the average fixed asset turnover ratio for Petronas and Aeon was 7.317 times and 1.203 respectively. Petronas had the greatest fixed asset turnover at 9.37 times in 2018. However, the ratio has started to decline in 2019 from 7.75 times to 4.83 times of inventory handed over, possibly due to overinvestment in fixed asset.
For leverage ratio, have 2 ratio, which is debt ratio and debt to equity ratio. For debt ratio, we can see that Aeon has the higher debt ratio rather than Petronas. In the table show in 2019, Aeon and Petronas has the highest debt ratio compared to 2018 and 2020. It shows that Petronas is better than in managing their liabilities rather than Aeon. Next is debt to equity ratio. In 2019, the debt to equity ratio for Aeon is increased, but it dropped in 2020. Petronas has the lowest of debt to equity ratio compared to Aeon, has the highest debt of equity ratio, and contribute by long-term debts.
The operating profit margin for both companies has decreased through the years. The highest operating profit margin was gained by Aeon, which is 0.44 in 2018. Meanwhile, the gross profit margin record an increment in 3 years, and the highest was in 2020. Next, the net profit margin for Aeon company has increased, but not for Petronas, which they had up and down through the 3 years. Then, for the return of asset, both company has great fall, especially for Aeon, which has fall to 0.01 in 2020. For the return of equity, Petronas has increased the equity from 0.16 to 0.17, then fall to 0.07 in 2020. However, Aeon has recorded a downfall through the 3 years. Next, return of investment has recorded increment for both company from 2018 until 2019, but then they fall in 2020.
Hi, my name is Muhammad AMARULAMIZI bin RAHIM. My number matic A20A1480. For my part is vertical analysis in liquidity ratio, which is have current ratio, quick ratio, and net working capital. The first analysis is Petronas Dagangan is having a higher current ratio rather than Aeon with 1.54 times and 0.36 times respectively. This ratio make the Petronas Dagangan investor in that company believe that the company to repay the short-term debt at least 1 or 2 times repayment than Aeon. For the quick ratio have a 1.31 times, show the Petronas Dagangan has enough current asset to cover its current liabilities. For every RM2 ringgit of current liability, the company has 1.31 ringgit of quick asset to repay for it compare than Aeon. Both company having a positive net working capital, but Petronas Dagangan have greatest net working capital than Aeon with RM 1853853 and RM 1579745 respectively in 2019.
My name is Muhammad bin MAHADI. My market number is A20B2304. I will explain about the leverage ratio. The graph shows that the debt ratio for Petronas Dagangan Berhad is a lower ratio than Aeon in 2019. So in 2019, Petronas Dagangan Berhad had a better ratio by 0.43 compared to Aeon 0.74. From the graph, we can conclude that Petronas Dagangan Berhad are financial equity. Also, a good debt to equity ratio is less than 1.0, while a risky debt to equity ratio is greater than 2.0. The graph shows that the debt equity for Petronas Dagangan Berhad at a lower ratio than Aeon in 2019. So Petronas Dagangan Berhad had a better ratio by 0.73 compared to Aeon 2.86. That's a higher ratio for the Aeon. From the graph, we conclude that the Petronas Dagangan Berhad are financed through equity.
Assalamualaikum madam. My name is Muhammad HUDZAIFAH bin KAMIL. Metric number A16A1205. Now I want to present about activity ratio from the vertical analysis for both company, which are Petronas Dagangan and Aeon Co in year 2019. From the chart, we can see Petronas Dagangan have a higher ratio in inventory turnover, which is 33.77 for Petronas and 4.66 for Aeon. For total asset turnover, Petronas Dagangan have 3.23 times and 0.69 for Aeon. And lastly, for fixed asset turnover, Petronas Dagangan have 7.75 times and for Aeon 1.24 times. So the conclusion, we can say Petronas Dagangan have a better performance than Aeon on overall for activity ratio in 2019. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you.
For the recommendation, I will explain about how to improve the performance of the weak company. Okay, we will advise the poor firm, that is Aeon, to develop goal from the company, since doing so will assist the employee score and the company become more successful. Okay, more effective inventory management is another measure that can assist reduce the debt to capital ratio. Inventory can consume a significant portion of a company working capital. Okay. To improve a weak company, the corporation should provide employees with break time on a regular basis, such as a week off after 3 weeks, or work, or even a holiday once a week. This is because we will give employees rest and be able to accomplish their tasks with full energy and focus. Okay, for the conclusion, the project has been useful to us because we have learned how to prepare ratio analysis. Besides that, we can conclude that this job demonstrates that financial management is not only about learning theory, but also about applying what we learn. Finally, based on our observation, we can conclude that a successful entrepreneur is come from a risky decision making that they choose. Experience is the most important thing to gain our knowledge or skill and observation, and therefore we should gain as much experience possible to hone our ability so that we can be an entrepreneur to help contribute the national economy in the future. That's all for me. Thank you.